Many of you all are complying with all of this stuff because you believe that we are going back to normal. Many of you all have no idea that we are never going back to normal. And many of you all have no idea of how worse it's going to get. Many of you all are complying simply because you think you're going to get your normal life back. And I'm going to be there front and center to look at your face when you get that vaccine and nothing changes. But in fact, it's gotten worse. All of this is going to boil down to character. And it's really going to boil down to what you value the most. And most of you all will value money and you will get the vaccine. That will take care of about 95% of the population. And that 5% that's left will be hated. And they will be hated not because they did not take the vaccine, but because they chose character over fear.
Hello, buddy. Behave yourself.
You know, even though we're in a pandemic, it's important that the kids are still able to be kids and still keep up with the regular traditions.
It's been very challenging times right now with COVID and everything else, when we wanted to make sure we offer the tradition of Santa Wonderland, as we've done for many years here at Bass Pro Shops, to our guests. So it's very important that we had all the safety features in place, all the social distancing, temperature taking, you know, the wonderful things we have to offer between, you know, Santa Wonderland's shield here and the cleaning that we do between each and every guest.
This is the April cover of Vogue magazine. This seems to be the newest trend, you know. Grab yourself a beta male for some mutual masturbation. Since this issue is from Portugal, I'm gonna assume they're first cousins. And look down here, it says freedom on hold. This is more 1984 doublethink bullshit. It's not really freedom if you can take it away, now is it? That's like saying you're in a monogamous relationship, but every third Wednesday you dabble in a little bukkake with a stranger you picked up from Crocodile Rock. That's like saying you're 90% vegetarian. That's like saying you're a mother, but you're gonna take a little break from feeding your kid. Guess what? If you don't feed the little shit, he dies. And it's kind of the same thing with freedom. Is there anything worse than these people who think the sooner we give up all of our freedoms, the sooner we'll get them back? Yeah, tell that to Anne Frank, you uncultured swine.
What are you gonna do when they tell you that you have to get the vaccine? What are you gonna do when they tell you that you must get the vaccine? Many of you all are going to take it. It's kind of like being at the bar and you get excited when you ask for one shot, but the bartender gave you two. And you say, I only ordered one. And then they say, this one's on the house.
Cases of intelligence going around out there. And then there's this vaccine. Suddenly, all the experts agree that it only takes 8 months to develop a vaccine. Why is that? Well, you know, because they're experts and they know stuff. But still not a peep about the connection between vaccines and autism. Still no mention of the fact that when you inject aluminum into your muscle, it crosses the blood-brain barrier and deposits in your brain where it stays indefinitely. Instead, they just repeat their vaccines are safe and effective chant like the little demonic cultists they are. Bill Gates must be very proud of his little idiotic minions. Doctors are now encouraging the CDC to warn patients that the side effects of this vaccine will be no walk in the park. Yeah, that's right, they're prepping us for the inevitable. Encouraging them to use more soft language by steering clear of the words adverse reaction and instead using the word response. Yeah, let them know when that third eye starts protruding from the middle of their forehead that just means it's working.
But what are you going to do when they tell you that in order to keep your job, you have to get a vaccine? What are you going to do when they tell you in order to get a job, you are going to have to get a vaccine? What are you going to do when they tell you in order to get your Section 8, you are going to have to get a vaccine? What are you going to do when they tell you in order to get your food stamps or any kind of government assistance, you are going to have to get that vaccine? What are you going to do?
The affirmative task we have now is to actually create a new world order. Create a new world order. Because the global order is changing again. And the institutions and rules that worked so well in the post-World War II era for decades, they need to be strengthened. And some have to be changed. So we have to do what we do best. We have to lead. We have to lead. We have to update the global rules of the road. We have to do it in a way that maximizes benefits for everyone, because obviously it's overwhelmingly in our interest. This is not a zero-sum game. It's overwhelmingly in our interest that China prosper. China prosper.
I am not for people being forced to take a vaccine. I believe that a person should have a choice. But what you all will find is that the more liberal the idea, the less rights you and I will have. The more liberal the place, the less rights the people that live there have. And so a common theme that you all will see is that being liberal actually means having your rights taken away.
Anytime there's a viral infection, it doesn't matter, swine flu, H1N1, West Nile virus, they have always, and I'm telling you always, have put it on the African American community to get vaccinated because of their underlying health conditions. They do not do this with any other race or ethnicity. They do not bring up the poor income white neighborhoods and their susceptibility or vulnerability to disease. They don't bring up any of the Asians and their susceptibility or vulnerability to disease. They don't bring up low, poor, immigrant white folk from either Ireland or any other country. They do not do this with any other race but the African American in this country. And you need to understand the history, biblical history too, of why these people, specifically this nation, does this and speak this way about African Americans every time there's a viral infection statewide.
And I'm going to touch on later about how white liberals control the black consciousness. But that is for another time.
Let's look at the facts as of today. 11 million cases, 250,000 deaths nationwide. California, 1 million cases, 18,000 deaths. New York, 574,000 cases, 33,000 deaths. So you telling me 33,000 deaths are all African Americans? Even if it was half, mentioning our underlying conditions doesn't even back up the narrative that we are so decimated that we need to be targeted for vaccination.
But what are you going to do when they tell you that you must get the vaccine? What are you going to do when you voted for a person that is going to tell you you don't have any rights when it concerns your body? What are you going to do when they make the vaccine mandatory?
If that vaccine was so perfectly safe, why do you need to trick black people through faith to get them to take this vaccine?
We need medical teams and outreach teams going into public housing projects and low-income communities. New York State will mobilize an army to vaccinate all New Yorkers fairly, equitably. No state will do it better. Speaker Carl Heastie is here, the Assembly is here, the Senate is here, we've discussed it. We will do a better job than any state in the nation. That is our promise.
Now, many of you all are going to tell me that you're not going to take the vaccine. But my response to that is, you all have not built up enough character to say no to a vaccine. If they can get you to wear a mask, meaning if they can get you to believe that a mask can protect you from a pandemic, then they can easily get you to take a vaccine, especially when there won't be any jobs.
Now, we don't want to have a lot of recovered people. Eventually, what we'll have to have is certificates of who's a recovered person, who's a vaccinated person.
We will ask people to have a vaccination before they can get on the aircraft.
Certificates of who's a recovered person, who's a vaccinated person.